So it is now approximately 7:37. My name is Joseph Malcarney. I am the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And this is the first time we're having this historic Zoom zoning board meeting online due to the COVID pandemic. So I have a statement that I need to read that kind of explains how we can legally still do this. So tonight's meeting has been convened in accordance with the Governor's March 13th, 2020 Executive Order number 202.1 as extended, which suspends certain provisions of the Open Meetings Law to allow the ZBA to convene a meeting via teleconference. In accordance with this executive order, the public has been provided with the ability to view tonight's meeting via Zoom and potentially YouTube channels and the local cable TV. A link to the town's YouTube channel has been provided in the meeting notice, and a transcript will be provided at a later date. Next is the meeting attendance, and as some of you may have heard, we have gone through. So in attendance in the meeting this evening is John Calogero, Charlie Canham, Arthur Weiland, Ron Mostello, Norma Dolan, and Virginia Morrow. Arlene, have all adjoining property owners been notified and have all fees been paid?
Yes.
And all publications have been sent out?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Let's see, so moving on with this, I have done a roll call to the members and we have a quorum present. We have all members in attendance. I've also confirmed with the ZBA clerk that this meeting has been duly notified, and we have fulfilled our legal notice requirements by means of the Poughkeepsie Journal and posting in the town's bulletin board and posting notices on the homepage of the town's website. Is there any other information, Arlene, that needs to be stated so that we comply with any requirements from the governor?
Did you say you're going to go notice this on the paper, right?
Yep.
So,
all right. So the agenda for this evening is going to be the Bouchard. Do we have them in attendance? And then the Murphy, those two area variants. We will start with John Calogero with the Bouchard. So John, you're up.
All right. The variance, it's actually two variances. They are in the process of renovating some areas of this farm. And there was an accessory building that dates back into the late 1800s, I guess, which was in bad condition and had to be demolished. And they are proposing the construction of a greenhouse on the same footprint, or on part of the footprint. It's going to be a smaller building, as you'll hear later on as we read this. And the original location, of course, was not within the now required zoning setbacks from the road, and also it projected further than the front line of the house, which is not something that fits into our present zoning code. So I will start with the planning board minutes. Is that
Yes.
appropriate? Okay. I will skip all of the tax grid numbers and so forth and basically summarize it.
Yeah.
At the Town of Clinton Planning Board meeting held on May 5th regarding the subject application, the following motion was made. Mr. Carroll motioned that the Town of Clinton Planning Board make a positive recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals on the requested area variances to Section 250, Attachment 2, reducing the front yard setback from 100 feet to 40 feet. And Section 250-22, permitting construction of an accessory building closer to the fronting street than the principal building, in order to build a 280 square foot greenhouse as requested by Rebecca Boucher on property located at 304 Clinton Avenue, Salt Point, New York, tax grid, etc., in an AR5 zone. And they go on to say the applicant is requesting a reduction in the front yard setback on the west side of the property from 100 feet to 40 feet to build a 280 square foot greenhouse on an 18.19 acre lot. The proposed location of the accessory structure is closer to the fronting street than the principal building. The property is in an AR5 zoning district. It is not within a ridgeline scenic and historic protection overlay. The property is not in a critical environmental area. The variance requested is substantial. However, the proposed location is the best choice given the existing use of the property as a horse farm and prior accessory structure location and foundation. Continuing, an undesirable change will not be produced in the character of the neighborhood. The benefit cannot be achieved by some other method. The proposed variance should not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environmental conditions of the neighborhood. The alleged difficulty is self-created, but should not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And there's a letter of authorization on file for Robert Nilsson to act on behalf of Rebecca Boucher. And that was approved, all aye, carried 7-0. This is a very attractive piece of property. The owner seems to be engaged in a restoration of much of the property. The building, one building is being reconstructed. I guess that one was economically feasible to reconstruct. And it's being done in what I would consider to be a methodology that's in harmony with the general character of the property, that of an old agricultural property. And the building that was torn down, that was not savable, was right next to the primary building on the property, but not attached to it, physically attached, that is. Unfortunately, it did not survive, and the footprint remains, and that is the area that the applicant has chosen to put a greenhouse, which is going to have a smaller footprint than the original building, and they are attempting to incorporate part of the foundation and part of the stone wall into the project to keep as much of the historical nature of the buildings on that property to some degree still present. And that's it. If Mr. Nilsson wants to add anything to that, I see.
No, I think you've explained it quite clearly. The existing foundation, as you stated, from the previous structure, we are planning on rebuilding to a low level height to act as a backdrop for our garden area that will be just beyond the greenhouse. The greenhouse itself is not extremely large, like you said, 280 square feet. Its footprint is only 19 feet 1 inches by 11 feet 7. and it only has, and then it has a 2'6" little cold frame in front of it, but the actual glass structure is only 11 feet 7 deep and 19 feet 2 long. So the existing foundation from the previous structure is actually being used as a garden wall, and will be, you know, behind and to the left of the proposed greenhouse area.
Thank you.
Any additional comments from the board members or questions?
Well, I'll just say I drove by the property and saw the work in progress. You know, there are a lot of old farms just like this in the town where the buildings are very close to the road for what were very good reasons then, and frankly, to me, still good reasons today. Particularly given the topography of the land, this seems like a very sensible place, and given its previous use of the land. So this makes a very good sense to me.
Thank you. Arthur, do you have a comment?
Yes, John, did you drive by again this afternoon?
I did, Arthur, and I did not see another building along anywhere near the required setback. There are some sheds much further out in the field, as we discussed, and we could probably ask Mr. Nilsson about it.
Yes, Mr. Nielsen.
Yes.
So I've dealt with this property 15 years or so ago. And at that point in time, and on the map that I'm currently seeing, there's a turnout shed north of the house and barns, about 200-300 feet on the map. And I was wondering from John whether he saw that turnout shed, because that would be a zoning violation being in the front yard setback. Now, this is a new map. It's not the same. It's not what I'm seeing on parcel access. I don't see the turnout shed here. Okay. So that was something I wanted to clarify, whether that turnout shed was still about 40 feet from the road.
Can you see this? Is this the one? Can you see my screen?
That's a lot, and I don't see the turnout shed by the road. You see if you, yes, that is the lot. That is the parcel.
The one you're talking about?
That is what I'm talking about.
The shed?
The shed that was on parcel access, which is an old photograph, and on other maps, is not on that map that you have on the screen. Let me just take a look at the map from our paperwork and see if, because I didn't check that.
Oh, are you talking about the old one? Hold on, I could bring that up.
Arthur, is your question as far as whether or not that the run-in shed is in the setback?
It was in the setback. This map doesn't go up north far enough. Whether or not it was dealt with 15 years ago, obviously, the property has continued to be used. That's the issue. If there is a turnout shed there, it should get a variance. I don't see it on the map that's on the screen.
And John, you had mentioned that you drove by and you didn't see anything that looked like it was within the setback.
Right. There are some other sheds further out in the fields, but much further out.
Yeah.
Well beyond Arthur's concern. Robert?
Yeah, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, as I had nothing to do with the installation of the run-in sheds, but to the best of my knowledge, I don't remember any sheds closer to the road on the north side than what is on this map. I know there's one back in the woods lines, but I don't remember. It might have been removed when they redid the fencing.
Okay.
I honestly can't tell you.
Okay. I didn't observe anything. I drove by at a reasonable rate of speed. There was somebody behind me, but um, I think that we can certainly put a condition at the end of the variance asking for, some further inspection on that.
If it even exists.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
What if it predates the zoning? What if the building was really old, built in the 60s or 50s?
There are building in the parcel access full parcel card. These turnout sheds were built in I think mostly in 75. They did a lot of construction at that point in time. So let's drop that. But the other thing I was a little confusion on the application, whether in the front of the application it says that ask if the lot is presently developed, and the answer was no. And I think the answer should probably be yes.
Yes.
And if it's commercial or residential, it is indicated as commercial.
I can't answer that, how they got it set up with their accountant or with the town.
Okay.
I-
I'm not too worried about this, other than the fact that it's a record for future reference.
No, correct. It's not a commercial horse farm.
Okay.
It's a private horse farm. There's no borders.
Okay. And John, I was looking at both the planning board and then your motion, and they refer to the setback as from 100 feet to 40 feet. I'd like to add the wording for this accessory structure. Some people get confused and think that if the setback has been changed to 40 feet, they're good. All the front yard has entirely changed. That's happened a few times.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Arthur. It's, and I agree with you. It's not changing the setback for life. It's only referenced as one structure.
I'd just like to ask John to put that in his motion.
So reducing the front yard setback for this structure.
Correct.
That's how you would.
Yeah, that's good. That'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's me. I'll mute myself now and start humming.
All right, any other comments from the board members? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Thank you. Comments from the public. And if we do have any comments from the public, I'd like you to state your name and your address prior to commenting. And remember to unmute yourself before you speak and then mute yourself again after you're done. So any comments?
Yes, I'm Nancy McLaughlin and Rick McLaughlin. We're bordering the Boucher property, Spooky Hollow Properties. And we're not disputing it. We totally agree with everything that she wants to do. She's improved the property 1,000%. So we support everything.
Great, great. I ride my bike. It's on my bike road passing ice, so I see the progress. And I was there on Tuesday, and it's looking nice. Looking nice. Things are happening.
And we've looked at the greenhouse that she wants to do, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, we're thankful. So I'm glad it's going this way.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Nancy. Okay, any other comments from the public? All right, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so
Aye.
moved. Thank you. Further discussion from the board.
I would just say that it seems like a marvelous addition to the property.
Yeah, it really is cleaning up and looking quite nice. It's definitely a change over the years as I've ridden past it. Okay, so John, your motion.
Okay. I motion that the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals grant the following variances requested by Rebecca Boucher to enable construction of a 280 square foot greenhouse on her property located at 304 Clinton Avenue, Salt Point, New York. Tax grid number 132400 6366 00 8372 88000. One, a variance from section 250 attachment 2, reducing the front yard setback for this structure from 100 feet to 40 feet. And 2, a variance from section 25022, permitting an accessory structure to be closer to the fronting street than the principal building. Whereas the applicant desires to build a 280 square foot greenhouse with the footprint within the footprint of a recently demolished building. 2, that building predated zoning and did not meet the current required front yard setback and was located in front of the principal building on the property. 3, the building was in a state of disrepair and the cost of repairs would have exceeded its value. 4, the applicant intends to make use of the existing stone walls and parts of the old foundation in the new construction. 5, there should be no undesirable change to the surrounding properties or to the neighborhood, since the new building is smaller than that which it will replace. Also, there are many properties along Clinton Avenue and Browning Road which also predate zoning and are closer to the road than currently permitted and are typical of agricultural practices years ago. The building which was removed was much taller than the proposed structure and was in that spot for more than 100 years without adverse effects. Therefore, the new building should result in a marginal reduction in the property's nonconformity. 6, the project will incorporate a new garden, which should add to the aesthetics of the property. 7, this 18.19 acre parcel is in an AR5 zoning district. 8, the property is not in a critical environmental area, nor within the Ridgeline Scenic and Historic Protection Overlay District. 9, the request is substantial, but making use of a previously developed site makes good sense rather than locating the greenhouse elsewhere on the property and disturbing more potential farmland. 10, the alleged difficulty is self-created, but the restoration of this property should be a benefit to the neighborhood and to the town. 11, there are no known violations. 12, the planning board has made a positive recommendation to the ZBA for approval. 13, an area variance is a type 2 action under seeker and requires no further action. And 14, all fees have been paid. And if we wish, we can then add a condition asking perhaps for the ZEO to just check that there's no other building within the setback north of it.
Sure, so second for discussion?
Second.
Okay. John, just, and you probably read that, you put in there about the going from the 100 foot to 40 foot for this building. You mentioned that?
Yes,
Okay.
that's actually in the.
Which number was that?
It's item number 1. It's in the variance in the actual motion. A variance from section 250 attachment 2, reducing the front yard setback for this structure from 100 feet to 40 feet.
Okay. Okay. Great. And
Couple of issues.
go ahead. Arthur.
Go ahead.
One issue is that the zoning administrator, Louis Fiorici, mentioned that and I've made this mistake in the past, that the accessory structure shall project closer to no accessory structure shall project closer to the fronting street than the principal building on the lot, or the required front yard setback, whichever is least restrictive. So we're giving a variance to be in front of the house, and it really doesn't, or to be in the setback. And it doesn't matter. We're giving the less restrictive. Now, the application itself has two things. First of all, they don't ask to be allowed to be in front of the building. They only ask for front yard setback. And the numbers on their ask is from 100 to 32 feet. So, Bob?
Yes.
40 feet, 32 feet?
Let me look at that. Yeah, that's what it says on that plan, is it's 32 feet off of the road edge.
Okay, so
But I think the 40 feet is from the center of the road. Is that correct?
That's a good guess.
Yeah, it says on that plan what it is. I have to leave my screen to pull up that plan.
because the setbacks would be from the center line of the road.
Yeah, we got to scroll down to the next
Can you
plan.
next page?
Yeah, that one.
This one?
Back up. You see where it's bubbled in there?
This bubble, this green one?
Yeah, yeah. What does that say?
Okay, hold on. 18, 32, 32 feet.
From the road.
Yeah,
Right.
it's gotta be from the middle of the main road. So you're having it here from this line. No, you measure it from the stone wall. This is the stone wall, right?
Right. That map shows the stone wall, and we usually go from the center of the road, right? That's why
Yes.
they're looking.
Yeah,
for
so
40 feet.
we should be fine then, because the stone wall, of course, is not in the road.
Right, the stone wall
Um,
is there. It's not going anywhere.
So it's 32 feet from the property line, but not, that's not where we measure for front yard setback. Is that what I'm getting out of this?
Right, so it's an additional 8 feet because we go to the center of the road.
Could you make a little addition to your statement, 40 feet from the center of the road, just so people don't look at the property line? And
So
does that
I'll
make sense?
just put that right in the motion.
Yeah.
Setback, reducing the front yard setback for this structure from 100 feet to 40 feet from the center of the road.
Thank you.
As measured. from the-
Okay.
Okay, further discussion? Okay. What we will do now is go to the voting. An aye vote is in favor of granting the variance. A nay vote would be an opposition. I will read, I will say each one of your names, and then if you could respond with an aye or a nay. John Calogero.
Wait, I'm sorry, Joseph, hold on. Did you put the condition about the fees, John?
Yeah, all fees have been paid is in there, number 14.
Number 14.
Condition.
And before we vote, how do we feel about a condition to have it looked at again by the ZEO, or is that moot?
I mean, I've ridden past it. I didn't see anything that looked like it was close in the setback. And if you specifically were looking at it today and didn't see anything, I mean, and it didn't come up in this report, my guess is there's probably not something there. Arthur was the one with the concern. Arthur, what how would you like to handle that?
According to this map, it's not there. If this map is incorrect, then the whole process is a little bit hinky,
Yeah.
but we're good.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I was by there on Tuesday. I didn't see anything.
Okay. All right, then my vote is aye.
Okay. Charlie Cannon,
Aye.
Arthur,
Aye.
Ron,
Aye.
Norma,
Aye.
Virginia.
Aye.
Your conditional variance has been granted. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
You can reach out to Arlene for any other questions that you have later with that. And we will continue on with our next.
So is Bob going to stay on the couch there and watch the rest of this thrilling?
No, I'm going downstairs to eat. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Murphy area variance. Maybe we'll change things up a little bit here. Patrick, why don't you tell us in your words why you're here before our virtual zoning board?
Well, I did a kitchen renovation, which was building permit approved, and actually had my inspection today. And I had planned on expanding the deck out towards the lake quite large. But as this process was happening and the world got shut down, I ended up putting a small deck on really purely for safety, because I had put a door in that was with nothing there. You would just walk out the door to nothing. So I built what I thought was going to be a temporary deck, but once I saw it in place, I decided that I no longer wanted the large deck, and really just did a continuation of the existing deck that was here when I bought the house. It's 6 foot off the house, and it kind of just continues to the end of the house where the garage is. So, it requires the variance because it is within the proximity to the water.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Cannon, if you would be so kind as to take over.
Sure. I'll start with, that was gave a very accurate description of what's going on there. It was a little confusing at first when we got the paperwork, in part because the map showed the original plan, which would have required a reduction from 75 feet to 55 feet, and yet the planning board motion mentioned 69 feet. And so it was once I talked to Mr. Murphy and went and saw, I realized that there was a much smaller proposal. So it turns out there are a lot of Murphys in Dutchess County, and the tax grid number on the planning board motion is incorrect to the best of my knowledge, and so I'll make that correction in my motion. So I'll summarize the planning board motion. The Town of Clinton Planning Board meeting held on May 5th regarding this application. Ms. Love made a motion that the Town of Clinton Planning Board provide a positive recommendation to the ZBA on the requested area variances. It's really just one area variance to section 250 and its attachment 2, reducing the rear yard setback from 75 feet to 69 feet to enlarge and repair an existing wood deck located in the rear yard of the existing single-family residence, as requested, being within a controlled area to section 250-78, which is our Freshwater Wetlands and Lakes and Rivers Act, by Patrick W. Murphy Jr. on property located at 53 Lake Pleasant Drive in an AR5 zoning district. They note, whereas the applicant is requesting an area variance from 75 feet to 69 feet to enlarge and repair an existing wood deck located in the rear yard. The lot is, according to the planning board motions, 1.75 acres. According to both parcel access and the property card, it's rounded to 1.8. I don't know. The survey, Patrick, wasn't exact. I don't know that it matters for the motion. In my motion, I was using what's in the parcel access and the property card, unless you know for a fact that it's exactly 1.75, well, we can deal with that. The lot is 1.75 acres or 1.8 according to parcel access, is non-conforming due to its acreage, 1.75 acres where 5 acres is required. All the lots in this area are pre-existing substandard lots, many with similar setback variances. It is our judgment that the variance required to construct this deck would not adversely affect the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. 3, the lot is non-conforming in an AR5 zoning district. Lake Pleasant Drive is a private cul-de-sac. 4, the property is not in an agricultural district. I'm sorry, my mouth isn't working today. The size of the deck would be 132 square feet. This would make the lot coverage 3,503 square feet, or approximately 4%, which is not in excess of the permitted 7%. The location of the proposed deck is within a controlled area under section 250-78, which is being within 100 feet of Browns Pond Lake. The property is not within the Ridgeline Scenic and Historic Protection Overlay District. The deck is not visible from adjoining parcels of the road, but can be seen from Browns Pond. 9, the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved in any other way. 10, seeker has determined that the granting of an area variance for single family residence is a type 2 action and not subject to further review. 11, the alleged difficulty is self-created. And 12, the requested area variance and buried propane tank location are substantial, but this should not preclude their granting. The non-conforming smaller nature of the lots in the area around Browns Pond make the variance for the deck not a substantial request. Seconded, all aye, motion carried 7-0. There are a couple of unusual things about this. So section 70, subsection 78 is our freshwater wetland, lakes and rivers. I paraphrased that section. In addition to this action being in the setback, it's within the 100-foot controlled area of Browns Pond, which imposes some additional permit issues for Mr. Murphy that are, as best I can understand, the purview of the planning department, the planning board, or at least subject to approval by the planning board. So as best I understand it, what we're dealing with here is the area variance issue of reducing the setback from 75 feet to 69 feet. You know, there's mention in the planning board minutes in motion of the burial of a propane tank. Again, that's something that very clearly requires approval under subsection 78. But again, it's my understanding that that's the purview of the planning board, not the ZBA. So, but I'll be interested to hear if others interpret it the same way. So I visited the property. It's a very neat, it's a lovely spot. The property's in great condition. You know, I would be hard pressed to imagine that anyone who hadn't been to the property routinely would notice that the deck had changed, because there, you know, 2/3 of the back of the house had a 6-foot wide deck on this, what is essentially a second floor at that point. And this just simply extends it, what, about another 10, 12 feet? Patrick, is that?
It's 18 to 20,
Yeah,
but
so,
yes,
yeah,
it really extends it the length of the house.
It just extends it the length of the house and to provide egress from the renovated kitchen. So it seemed like a very sensible, it certainly doesn't change the nature of the property or the neighborhood in my opinion. So that's my summary, Joseph.
Great, thank you. Other comments from the board members?
Yeah, I have 2 comments. There's another deck down by the lake without any paperwork on it. And the other comment is for the benefit of, I researched our zoning codes, doing a word search, and came up with another aspect of the intrusion into yards, 250-23D1. The building is allowed to have protrusions like bay windows and maybe awnings. I'd have to go back to the up to 3 feet into the yard. The 6-foot deck, it looks like there he's asking for 6 feet. So technically, there's another variance required for that. Potentially, those are 2 issues.
Arthur, I don't understand how there could be a second variance required.
The protrusion of the porch, the deck, is more than 3 feet into the yard, so it's considered part of the building. But it is also it is part of the building that is intruding into the yard.
But that's covered by the rear yard setback variance.
The new deck is going to be the 6 feet, which is directly under the existing one that you have from the second floor, correct, Patrick?
Yes.
Yeah, so then, Arthur, I think you have a very good point that had there not been a deck, or if he wasn't applying for this variance, then he would have to, since that protrudes past it. But since the granting of this variance will essentially make the need for any others null and void, so to speak, in relationship to that deck.
In part, I'm bringing this up because there are new people on the board, and there get to be really peculiarities in some of this. I'm just going to mute myself shortly as I consider it, but there is still the issue of the deck down by the lake.
Okay, so do we have any information about the deck down by the lake? I'm sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
I was just going to say it was here when I bought the house.
Okay. Arlene, you had mentioned something?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's been there. It's been there. So nobody knows. It's been there. It's for days. It's been there forever.
You need to get closer to the microphone, Arlene. We can't.
Microphone, I know. It's been in there. There's a lot of properties in this neighborhood that there's a deck right by the lake.
So you're saying that you believe this is a pre-existing non-conforming?
Yes, they're not the only one who has that. There's a lot of properties over there by the lake. If you go there, there's a lot in there that's been there forever. So we don't have any record. They've been in there, God knows.
I mean, I have to say that was my assumption, because if I had built this house in 1965, the very first thing I would have done is put steps down to the lake.
It's just like on Silver Lake. When you go to Silver Lake, you see all those decks and those like a dock and everything. They always do that by the lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the status of our record keeping for things that were pre-existing is just very difficult. We just can't. We don't expect parcel access to pick all of that up in the property card. So.
Again, for the new members on the board, when I was doing a search for this, and I wish the zoning administrator was here, I was really impressed with his paperwork. It was a step up. But we don't have in our code, there is nothing called a deck. And that's just because the people who wrote the code years ago, I think, didn't really deal with decks. They had porches. At some point, we might want to have an interpretation that a deck is also a porch. But I'm just saying, if it's not in the code, it's not allowed. But obviously, that's not going to hold up much water. I just saying that should be dealt with.
Good point, Arthur. Thank you for mentioning that. Any further discussion from members of the board?
I just was wondering if others shared my conclusion that, for instance, the buried propane tank is an issue for the planning board, not for the ZBA.
I think they'll send it back to us if they think they need to.
I agree with you, Charlie.
You know, I was sort of hoping the planning board would have taken care of that while they had Mr. Murphy, 2 weeks ago, making it conditional upon the variance. But what I don't know, Mr. Murphy, is whether you have to go back now, or when you apply for the building permit, whether that will trigger, since you're within 100 feet of Brown's Pond under section 78, does there need to be a formal stamp of approval from the planning board? Did this discussion happen at the planning
Can I
board?
talk? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So they have to go back to the planning board for the wetlands permit approval because it's within the 100 feet within the control area.
Okay.
The tank that's buried, it's not considered a structure, so that's why it's not needed a variance.
Good.
But then the deck, that's considered within the wetlands permit and the burial. So after the variance, they still have to go back before the planning board for the wetlands permit.
Okay. Sorry, I was hoping to make this thing streamlined a bit, but that's the way the system works. So hopefully it won't slow you down too much. So.
Okay.
It's okay, whatever we got to do.
By the way, we have Mark Kaminsky, the surveyor, right there. So he could also talk more about everything.
Mark.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Any comments you want to share?
Yes. So when I originally prepared the application for Pat, obviously that may be the plan that you have. You know, the deck was larger, and so after our initial meeting with the planning board the beginning? Yeah, it was the beginning of the month, right, Arlene?
Yes.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
Our meeting with the planning board.
2 weeks ago.
The discussion was, and Pat had just, added on to the existing deck. So what I did was I went out and field located the existing deck, the existing propane tank. They're shown on a plan. And at the time of the planning board meeting, there was a discussion what the offset was to the deck that Pat had constructed. And so I made an estimate of 69 feet from, I pulled up the drawing as we had the meeting. When I actually went and measured everything, and I know 69 has been referenced in your documents, it's actually 68 feet. It was, when I had more precise measurements. So if you can make that modification in your documents, that's the accurate number. It's 68 feet to the edge, and it's to the edge of the pond. And then also, I did do a calculation for building coverage for this site, and I did include the deck that is at the top of the right by water's edge with the stairs going down to the pond, and I included that, the deck, the existing deck, and the deck that Pat has added on, and the footprint of the residence and the garage, and it totals 2440 square feet, and that's 3.2% coverage based on the actual survey, which is 1.75 acres.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will make those changes. I did not have an actual survey, so I was going to go with the property card.
Okay. Any further discussions or questions from the board? I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Any comments from the public? All right, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, so moved. Any further discussion from the board? All right, Mr. Canham, your motion.
Yeah, I move that the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals grant the area variance requested by Patrick W. Murphy Jr. from Town of Clinton Zoning Law, District Schedule of Area and Bulk Regulations, Section 250, Attachment 2, to reduce the rear yard setback from 75 feet to 68 feet, to allow enlargement of the wood deck on the rear of the principal dwelling unit on property located at 53 Lake Pleasant Drive, Statsburg, New York. And Arlene, I put in what I found as the tax grid number from parcel access, and I believe the planning board minutes are wrong. If for some reason that's not the case, this will need to be amended. The property is a 1.75 acre lot located in an AR5 zoning district. Factors: 1, the applicant is requesting reduction of the rear yard setback from 75 to 68 feet in order to extend an existing deck further along the rear wall of the house. 2, the proposed extension of the deck takes place within a controlled area under section 250-78, that being the 100-foot buffer around the edge of Brown's Pond. The construction of the deck within the controlled area is a regulated activity under section 250-78B1 and requires a permit approved by the planning board. The applicant also wishes to bury a propane tank within the controlled area. That activity will also require a permit approved by the planning board, but does not affect the area variance requested here. 3, granting the requested variance will not cause an undesirable change in the neighborhood or be a detriment to nearby properties. The proposed deck construction simply extends an existing deck further along the rear wall of the house and will not be visible from neighboring dwellings. 4, the requested variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood. Construction of the deck extension requires only minimal soil disturbance to provide footings for posts. That said, we defer to the judgment of the planning board on whether the proposed actions, including the burial of the propane tank, meet the requirements under section 250, it's a typo, -78, for approval of a regulated activity within the controlled area of Brown's Pond. 5, the requested variance is modest, representing only an 8% reduction in the rear yard's setback. 6, the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by other means. The extension of the deck allows egress from a remodeled kitchen onto the deck from a newly installed door. 7, the alleged difficulty is self-created, but this does not preclude granting the variance. 8, the property is not in an agricultural district, nor is it within the Ridgeline Scenic and Historic Protection Overlay District, within, not with, or a critical environmental area. 9, an area variance is a type 2 action under SECRA and requires no further review. Condition that all fees have been paid.
Second for discussion. Do I have a second?
I think Arthur will do it.
Okay. Thank you, Arthur. Okay, discussion. Any comments about or questions about the motion that Mr. Cannon has presented to us? Okay. Once again, an aye vote is in favor of granting the area variance. A nay vote is in opposition to that. I will read your names, and if you would please respond with an aye or a nay. John Calogero.
Aye.
Charlie.
Aye.
Arthur.
Aye.
Ron.
Aye.
Norma.
Aye.
Virginia.
Aye.
My vote is aye as well. Your variance has been granted. So congratulations, Patrick. And again, if there's any questions that you have, you can certainly talk with Arlene later about that, and she can help you with anything that you may need help with, or our paperwork. She does pretty much everything in the town. So
I realize that. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Okay,
your time.
Patrick, you're gonna be Patrick. Can you hear me, Patrick?
I can hear you.
Sorry. Next meeting is June 16. You're gonna be for the wetlands permit, for the water law, for the proximity of the lake. Okay.
What was that?
June 16th meeting.
Oh, June 16th. Okay. And what do I need to do prior to that?
Nothing. Just show your face like today. Planning board.
Okay.
I have your application for the wetlands permit, right? I think so.
Yes.
Mark?
Right, Mark? Yeah.
Call her.
You're good. You're good. You just have to explain the proximity to the lake. Good.
Call her.
Yeah,
After that, we can start
I'll call you
taking it.
Arlene.
there we go.
Okay,
There we go. All right.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right.
Be well.
Thank you, Mr. Graminsky.
You're welcome. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Somebody should maybe look at Arlene's microphone settings. Maybe she needs to
Here's
boost your
what
input.
happened.
Get
Here's
her another
what happened. I had to borrow the supervisor's video camera because I have a new computer and the microphone is not adjusted. I was fine at the planning board, so it's just this video camera that's looking at me right now that doesn't have a good microphone. So
Okay. All right.
I
So,
think Arlene will definitely deal with it. I'm not worried at all.
yeah.
no wonder I'd be talking and nobody could hear me. I was like, I'm not mute, so it's the microphone. So
Okay, Arlene, did you, are we going to approve the minutes or do you want to wait until next time to bring that up?
I don't have any minutes.
Yeah, I didn't get
send
minutes.
to you. It's
Yeah.
Okay, so let's postpone that till we have an opportunity to receive the minutes and be able to review them and then do that. Is there any other information that needs to come before the Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals?
You could check with the liaison officer if there's anything. Liaison officer, can you hear me? Dean?
I really can't hear you, Arlene. What'd you say?
She's
I
basically,
said, do you have any news to share with us, with the board?
Don't have any news? No, we're really not doing too much. So, unless you guys have some news for me.
very good, thank you. There is one comment. I appreciate what Arthur brought up about the deck with the overhang. It's always good to hear those little nuances, so thanks for sharing that. So if there's anything that extends, cantilever deck or something extending out of the house more than 3 feet, then that requires a variance so long as it's in the setback. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Good little tidbits from our zoning. And also the recommendation to address decks in future zoning law or review that we have. So it's another good point that you bring up.
I'm assuming Dean took notes. Next.
All right. So since we don't have anything else, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this Zoning Board of Appeals meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't know. I don't have anything to do for a while.
It doesn't have to be unanimous, Arthur. You can.
Yeah, good night, Arthur.
Buddy, thank you very
All
much.
right.
And
Leave the meeting. Oh, by the way, I discovered something nice with this mute. The space bar unmutes without going down to the other muting. All right, I'll leave the meeting. Goodbye, folks.
Good night.
As long as we have Dean here, are we getting makeup and hair consultants from the town, for future broadcasts? Or is the town going to foot that bill or what?
You think the town can afford anything at this point?
Is that a reflection on how bad we look at this meeting?
I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, oh my God.
Marcus was on with the state comptroller, and he says that sales tax revenue across the state is down 22%. So
Get ready.
get ready.
John, if you're worried about getting a haircut, you just got to give up and let your wife do it. Judy's been doing mine since I was 17. So
Gina's been doing mine for 22 years and it's saved a lot of money.
it does.
Yeah, I'm not letting my husband touch my hair.
Yeah,
I don't think he'll want to.
there's a
As
gender
long as it's
balance.
been since I was 5 years old.
That's great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I think
Yeah, good
glad
night.
to see everybody well.
Yep. Take care.
We'll get through.
See you guys
Fred,
next month.
thank you for helping us out, Fred, with getting this everything set and going. And Arlene, appreciate you working on all the details too and helping out and all the board for all that you do continuously. So
Fred.
thank you again. All right. Good night.
See you guys
Good night.
next month.
Good night. Thank you all.
See you next month.
Enjoy summer.
Try.
Fred, stay Fred.